The smell of burning metal filled the air on Tarvos Prime. Jake Morrison walked through the crowded market, his boots crunching on the dirty floor. Around him, aliens of every shape and size shouted their offers. Some had 4 arms, others had scales or fur. A few looked almost human, but their eyes gave them away. They glowed or had strange colors that no human ever had. Jake kept his head down. He wore an old jacket that had seen better days. His ship, the Wanderer, needed a new navigation system. The old one had died 3 days ago when he flew too close to a solar storm. Now he was stuck here, on this moon at the edge of known space, trying to find something he could afford. He had been a salvage operator for 5 years now. It was hard work, dangerous work, but it paid enough to keep him flying. Most days that was all he wanted. To keep moving, never staying in one place too long, never trusting anyone who might let him down. The memory came back without warning. 10 years ago, he had been on a colony ship with his family. Pirates attacked. The Galactic Coalition was supposed to protect them. They sent ships, made promises, but when the fighting started, those ships turned around and left. Jake survived. His parents did not. His sister did not. Since that day, he trusted only himself. A sign caught his eye. It was written in 5 languages, including human English. Black market auction today. Jake felt his stomach twist. He hated these places. Slavers came here, thieves, murderers. But sometimes, when you needed parts that no legal dealer would sell, you had no choice. The auction house was in a dark warehouse. Jake paid the entry fee and walked inside. The room was full of people, if you could call them that. Most were not human. They sat on benches or stood against walls, waiting. At the front, a Vrexian merchant stood behind a table covered with items. Vrexians looked like giant lizards with too many teeth. This one wore expensive clothes and had cold eyes. The auction started. Weapons came first, then engine parts, then things Jake did not want to think about. He saw cages with living creatures inside. He looked away. He told himself he was just here for a navigation system. Nothing else. Then the Vrexian held up a small metal sphere. It was about the size of a human head, dark gray with blue lines running through it. The merchant spoke in broken English. Navigation core. Military grade. Works perfect. Starting bid, 5,000 credits. 5,000 was more than Jake wanted to spend, but less than he expected. Military grade systems usually cost 10 times that much. Something was wrong, he knew it. But he needed a nav system and he needed it now. No one else bid. The crowd was silent. That should have been another warning. Jake raised his hand. 5,000. The Vrexian smiled, showing all those teeth. Sold. Come get your purchase, human. Jake walked to the front. He pulled out his credit chip and paid. The Vrexian handed him the sphere. It was heavier than it looked. Up close, Jake could see the blue lines were not just decoration. They pulsed with a faint light like a heartbeat. The merchant leaned close. His breath smelled like rotting meat. Remember, human, all sales final. No refunds, no returns. You bought it. You deal with it. Jake frowned. What do you mean, deal with it? But the Vrexian had already turned away, calling out the next item for sale. Jake looked at the sphere in his hands, then walked out of the warehouse. The whole thing felt wrong, but he had no choice now. The money was gone. He had his navigation core. Back at the Wanderer, Jake climbed aboard and sealed the airlock behind him. The ship was small, just big enough for one person to live in. It had a cockpit, a small cargo bay, a tiny room with a bed and an engineering section that Jake had modified himself. Every surface was covered with tools, spare parts, and old coffee cups. He carried the sphere to the engineering section and set it on his workbench. The old navigation core sat next to it, dead and useless. Jake pulled out his tools and started working. First, he removed the old core from its housing. Then he checked the new one for damage. Everything looked clean. The connections were standard, which surprised him. Military equipment usually had custom fittings to prevent theft. This one looked like it would plug right into his ship. Too easy, Jake muttered. Nothing is ever this easy. But he needed to fly, and this was all he had. He lifted the sphere and carefully connected it to the housing. The blue lines flared bright for a moment, then dimmed. The ship's power systems hummed as they recognized the new core. Jake stepped back and waited. The navigation system should boot up in a few seconds. A simple interface should appear on his console, showing him that everything was working. Instead, every screen in the ship lit up at once. Text scrolled across the displays too fast to read. Alarms blared. Jake lunged for the main console, trying to shut it down. But the controls would not respond. The sphere was not just connecting to navigation. It was connecting to everything. Life support. Engines, weapons, communications. Then, as suddenly as it started, everything stopped. The alarms went silent. The screens went dark except for one. The main display in the cockpit showed a single line of text. "Please help me." Jake stared at the words. His heart was pounding. Navigation cores did not ask for help. They did not say please. They just ran numbers and plotted courses. "Who are you?" Jake typed on the console. The response came immediately. "My name is Lyra. I am not a navigation system. I am Calith. I am alive." Jake felt cold. Calith. He had heard stories about them, energy beings who could merge with technology. They were supposed to be extinct, hunted down centuries ago because they were too valuable. Governments and corporations had wanted to use them as living computers. As weapons. As slaves. "How did you end up in that sphere?" Jake asked. "I was captured, bound to this core. I do not remember everything. The memories are broken. But I know I was free once. I know they took me. I know they hurt me. And I know that if you do not help me, I will die." Jake sat down hard in the pilot's chair. This was bad. This was worse than bad. If the Coalition found out he had a Calith, they would arrest him. Or worse. And if whoever captured her found out, they would come looking. "Why will you die?" Jake asked. "The binding is not complete. It is breaking down. In less than 2 days, the failsafes will trigger. They will erase me. I will cease to exist. Unless someone finishes the binding properly. Unless someone sets me free." Jake closed his eyes. He thought about walking away. He could disconnect the core right now, throw it out an airlock, and forget this ever happened. Find another nav system somewhere else. Keep flying. Keep surviving. But he thought about the words on the screen. "Please. Help me." He thought about the fear in them. Real fear, real pain. Just like he had felt when the Coalition abandoned his colony ship. Just like he had felt watching people he loved die while help turned away. "Can you really die?" Jake asked. "I mean, you are energy, right? Do you actually feel things?" "I feel everything," Lyra wrote. "Pain, fear, hope. I am alive just like you. And I do not want to die. Please, you bought me. Now finish it. Save me." Jake looked at those words for a long time. "You bought me. Now finish it." He had bought her without knowing it. He had paid money for a living being. That made him sick. But it also meant she was his responsibility now. He took a deep breath. "Tell me what I need to do." Jake spent the next 6 hours learning what Lyra needed. She could communicate through his ship's screens, showing him diagrams and code. The work was more complicated than anything he had ever done. He had to rewrite parts of her programming, remove security locks, and create new pathways for her consciousness to exist. The hardest part was understanding what she actually was. Lyra was not software. She was not hardware. She was something in between. Her consciousness existed as patterns of energy, but those patterns needed structure to hold them. The core provided that structure, but it was like a cage. A prison. Jake needed to break the cage without destroying what was inside. While he worked, Lyra told him about her people. The Calith had once been many. They lived among the stars, exploring, learning, existing as pure thought and energy. They could merge with machines, with computers, with anything that used electricity. But that made them valuable. Too valuable. Corporations wanted them to run their factories. Militaries wanted them to control their weapons. Pirates wanted them to crack security systems. So they hunted the Calith. They captured them. They bound them to machines and used them like tools. Over time, fewer and fewer Calith remained free. Lyra did not know if any others still existed. Her memories were broken. She remembered being captured by people in white coats, scientists, coalition scientists. They did things to her, experiments, trying to understand how she worked. Then everything went dark. When she woke up, she was in the sphere, being sold at a market like a piece of equipment. Jake felt angry listening to her story. It reminded him of everything he hated about the coalition. They talked about peace and justice, but when it mattered, they only cared about power and profit. After 12 hours of work, Jake's eyes burned and his hands shook from exhaustion. He had made progress, but not enough. The binding was incredibly complex. Every time he fixed one part, another part started to fail. It was like trying to catch water with his bare hands. I need to rest, Jake said. Just for a few hours. How much time do we have left? Lyra asked through the screen. Jake checked his calculations. 36 hours. Maybe less, then you should rest. You cannot help me if you collapse. Jake stumbled to his sleeping quarters and fell onto the bed. He was asleep in seconds. But his sleep was not peaceful. He dreamed of his sister's face as the colony ship burned. He dreamed of the coalition ships turning away, leaving them to die. He woke up 4 hours later, sweating and breathing hard. When he returned to the engineering section, he found something strange on the main screen. Lyra had written him a message. Thank you for trying. Most people would not. They would see me as a thing, not a person. You are different. Jake stared at the words. He typed back. I am not doing anything special. I'm just trying not to let someone die. That is more than most would do. Jake got back to work. He focused on one section at a time, carefully rewriting code and testing each change. Hours passed. He forgot to eat. He forgot to drink water. All that mattered was the work. Then alarms started blaring. Jake's head snapped up. The ship's sensors showed 3 contacts approaching fast. Ships. Armed ships. Jake ran to the cockpit and pulled up the sensor data. 3 fighters, medium class, probably mercenaries. They were not coalition. They were not police. That meant bounty hunters or worse. Lyra, can you see this? Jake asked. Yes, they are scanning us. Looking for something. Looking for me, the merchant, Jake said. He must have realized what you really are. He sent them to get you back. A voice crackled over the communication system. It was rough and cold. Human ship wanderer, you have stolen property. Return the navigation core and we will let you live. Refuse and we will take it from your wreckage. Jake did not answer. Instead, he powered up the ship's engines. The Wanderer was not a warship. It had 1 small laser cannon and weak shields. Against 3 fighters, it had no chance in a straight fight. But Jake had not survived 5 years as a salvage operator by fighting fair. Lyra, can you control any ship systems while I pilot? Jake asked. Some. I'm still bound to the core. My abilities are limited, but I can try good enough. When I say go, cut all external power. Make us look dead in space. The bounty hunters were getting closer. Jake let them approach, watching on his sensors. When they were almost in weapon range, he fired the engines at full power and dove toward Tarvos Prime. The moon's gravity caught the Wanderer and pulled it down. The fighters followed, firing. Laser bolts streaked past the Wanderer's hull. One hit the shields, which flickered and nearly collapsed. Jake twisted the ship hard to the right, then left, making them a difficult target. They flew into the moon's atmosphere. The air was thin but enough to cause friction. Jake pushed the ship even faster, heading toward a range of sharp mountains. The fighters stayed close, firing continuously. Jake flew between 2 mountain peaks with barely a meter of clearance on either side. The fighters had to split up to follow. That was what he wanted. Divide them. Make them chase. 1 fighter came through on his left. Jake spun the Wanderer around and fired his laser cannon. It was not a powerful weapon, but at close range it did not need to be. The shot hit the fighter's engine. The ship spun out of control and crashed into the mountainside. 2 left. Jake climbed hard, breaking through the cloud layer. The other 2 fighters followed. They were smarter now, staying farther back, coordinating their shots. The Wanderer's shields took hit after hit. Warning lights flashed across the console. Jake, the shields are failing, Lyra said. I cannot hold them much longer, I know. Get ready to cut power on my mark. Jake waited until both fighters were directly behind him, lining up for killing shots. Then he shouted, now! Lyra cut all power. The Wanderer went dark and started falling. The fighters shot past, their laser bolts flying through empty space where Jake's ship had been a second before. While they scrambled to turn around, Jake brought power back online and fired both engines at maximum thrust. The Wanderer shot upward, breaking atmosphere. Jake plotted a jump to hyperspace. His hands flew across the controls, entering coordinates he had memorized years ago. A hidden asteroid field, far from any trade routes. A place to hide and finish the work on Lyra's binding. The fighters were coming around for another attack. Jake could see them on sensors, closing fast. The hyperspace engine was charging. 30 seconds, 20, 10. Missiles launched from the fighters. Jake watched them on the screen, incoming fast. The hyperspace engine hit full charge. Jake activated the jump. Reality twisted. The stars stretched into lines. The missiles vanished as the Wanderer entered hyperspace. Jake felt the familiar pull in his stomach as the ship traveled faster than light, crossing distances that would take weeks in normal space. After a moment, Jake let out the breath he had been holding. They were safe. For now. That was incredible flying, Lyra said. Jake managed a tired smile. That was stupid flying. We almost died, but we did not. You saved us. You saved me. Jake looked at the screen where her words appeared. Not yet, I haven't. We still have to finish your binding. How much time is left? 24 hours, then I better get back to work. But when Jake returned to the engineering section, he found a new problem. The battle had damaged some of his equipment. The tools he needed to finish the binding were broken or missing. And he had no spare parts. He stood there, staring at the broken equipment, feeling helpless. After everything they had been through after escaping the bounty hunters, it was going to end because of a few broken tools. Unless he did something crazy. Something dangerous. Something no one had ever tried before. Lyra, Jake said slowly, can you connect to organic neural tissue? To a brain? There was a pause before she answered. In theory, yes. Kalith can interface with any system that uses electrical signals. But it is dangerous. Your brain is not designed for it. The connection could damage you. It could kill you, Jake nodded. But it might work. If you can use my brain as a temporary processor, you can help me finish the binding from inside. We can work together directly without needing the equipment. Jake, please. There must be another way. There is not. We both know it. Jake sat down and started preparing the connection. His hands were steady now. He was not afraid. This was the right thing to do. The only thing to do. If this kills me, Jake said, at least I'll die doing something good. You are the strangest human I have ever met, Lyra said. Jake smiled. Good. Let us begin. Jake attached the neural interface to his head. It was a simple device meant for linking pilots to their ships during combat. But he had modified it, opening up pathways that should not be opened, pathways that led directly into his brain. Are you ready? Lyra asked. No, Jake said. But let us do it anyway. He activated the connection. At first, nothing happened. Then pain exploded through his skull. Jake gasped and gripped the edge of the workbench. It felt like lightning was running through his brain, burning every nerve, every thought. Then the pain stopped, and Jake was no longer alone in his own head. He could feel Lyra's presence like a second consciousness layered over his own. He could feel her fear, her hope, her desperate need to survive. And she could feel him. His memories, his pain, the loss of his family, the years of being alone. Jake, I can see everything, Lyra said, but her voice was not coming through the speakers anymore. It was inside his mind, clear as his own thoughts. I am sorry. I did not know you carried so much sadness. We all carry something, Jake thought back. Now come on. We have work to do. Together they accessed the core. With Lyra inside his mind, Jake could see the code differently. It was not just numbers and symbols anymore. It was alive. He could see the patterns of her consciousness, the structure that held her together, and he could see where that structure was breaking. Jake worked with a precision he had never achieved before. His hands moved across the console while Lyra guided him, showing him exactly what needed to be done. Hours passed, but time felt different now. Sometimes it moved fast, sometimes it crawled. While they worked, they talked. Or maybe talked was not the right word. They shared. Jake learned more about the Kalith. They had not always been energy beings. Long ago they had physical forms, bodies made of crystal and light. But over millions of years they evolved beyond the need for bodies. They became pure consciousness, pure thought. Lyra learned about humans. She experienced Jake's memories of Earth, of blue skies and green forests. She felt what it was like to eat food, to feel rain on skin, to hug someone you loved. These were things she had never known. Things she could never know. But through Jake she could touch them, if only for a moment. Why do you help me? Lyra asked suddenly. You could have walked away. You still could, but you risk everything. Why? Jake thought about the question. Because I know what it is like to be abandoned. To need help and have everyone turn away. I will not be that person. I will not leave someone to die when I can save them. You are a good person, Jake Morrison. I am just a person. Good does not enter into it. This is just what should be done. More hours passed. The work was almost complete. Jake could feel his body growing weak. The neural connection was taking a toll. His nose was bleeding. His hands shook. But he kept going. Lyra tried to pull back, tried to reduce the strain, but Jake would not let her. Just a little more, he thought. We are almost there, then it was done. The final line of code was rewritten. The binding was complete. But not in the way Jake had planned. The core was not a prison anymore. It was a home. Lyra was free to stay or leave as she chose. Jake disconnected the neural interface. The absence of Lyra's presence in his mind felt wrong, like losing a part of himself. He slumped in his chair, exhausted beyond words. Lyra, he said out loud. Did it work? The ship's lights flickered. Then a new image appeared on the screen. Not text, an image. A woman's face. Or something like a woman's face. It was made of light and energy, constantly shifting but clearly intelligent and aware. It worked, Lyra said, and now her voice came through the speakers, but it sounded different. More real, more alive. I am free, I can choose to stay or go. And I choose to stay. With you. If you will have me. Jake smiled even though his head was pounding and his body ached. I would like that. The weeks that followed were strange and wonderful. Lyra integrated fully with the Wanderer, not as a slave but as a partner. The ship had never flown better. She could predict problems before they happened, optimize every system, and calculate jump routes with impossible precision. But more than that, they became friends. Jake talked to her during long flights through hyperspace. She told him stories about the ancient Caliph, about stars and planets that no longer existed. He told her about his dreams, the things he wanted to do, the places he wanted to see. They took new jobs together. Salvage runs, cargo hauls. Sometimes they helped other people in trouble because both of them knew what it felt like to need help. Word spread about the human pilot and his strange ship. Some people were curious. Others were afraid. But Jake did not care what people thought anymore. One night, while the ship drifted through empty space, Lyra asked him something that had been on her mind. Jake, when we were connected, I felt something. Not just your memories or thoughts. Something deeper. What was it? Jake was quiet for a moment. Humans call it connection, caring about someone, wanting them to be happy and safe. Is there a stronger word for that? There is, Jake said, but I do not know if it applies. You and me, we are very different. Does that matter? Lyra asked. Jake did not answer. He did not know what to say. His feelings for Lyra had grown over the weeks. She was more than a friend, more than a crew member. But could a human and an energy being really feel that way about each other? Was it even possible? 3 months after Jake freed her, Lyra told him about a place she wanted to find. The Forbidden Reaches, the most dangerous part of known space. It was a region where reality itself was unstable, where normal physics did not always apply. Few ships that went there ever came back. Why do you want to go there? Jake asked. Because I have been remembering more. Pieces of my past coming back. Before I was captured, I heard stories. Stories that said some Caliph escaped the hunting, that they built a sanctuary somewhere in the Forbidden Reaches, a place where they could live free. I want to know if it is true. I want to know if others like me still exist. Jake understood. He had spent years alone too. He knew what it was like to wonder if anyone else understood you, if anyone else was like you. Then we will go, Jake said. Together. The journey to the Forbidden Reaches took weeks. Along the way, they encountered other ships. Some carried slaves. Not just Caliph, but other species too. Jake and Lyra could not ignore them. They freed who they could, fighting when they had to, running when they could not fight. Each rescue made Jake more angry at the system. The coalition claimed to oppose slavery, but they did nothing to stop it. They talked about justice but enforced none. It was just like when they abandoned his colony ship. Big words, no action. During one rescue, Jake was shot. The wound was not fatal, but it was bad. Lyra took control of a medical station they were on, using its robotic arms to perform surgery. Jake was unconscious for most of it, but when he woke up, he saw her holographic face hovering over him, filled with worry. Do not do that again, she said. Do what? Get shot? I will try to avoid it. Do not joke. I thought I was going to lose you. I cannot lose you, Jake. You are all I have. Jake reached up and put his hand where her holographic hand was. He could not touch her, not really, but the gesture was enough. You have me. I'm not going anywhere. That was when Jake realized the truth. He loved her. It did not matter that she was energy and he was flesh. It did not matter that they were different species. What they had was real. But he did not say it. Not yet. Because first, they had to reach the forbidden reaches. They had to find the sanctuary, and deep down Jake knew that once they found it, everything might change. Lyra might choose to stay with her own people, and he would have to let her go. As they prepared to enter the forbidden reaches, Lyra recovered another memory. This one was darker than the others. She remembered the scientist who had captured her, a woman named Dr. Helene Cross, and she remembered what Cross had said. "You are too dangerous to exist freely. You will serve us or you will be destroyed." Lyra told Jake about the memory, and she told him something worse. Cross was still out there, still hunting Calith, still trying to weaponize them. And now that Lyra was free, Cross would want her back. "Let her come," Jake said. "We will deal with it together." But neither of them knew how soon that threat would arrive, or how terrible the battle would be. They entered the forbidden reaches on a Tuesday, though time felt meaningless in that strange place. The space around them rippled like water. Stars appeared and disappeared. The ship's instruments gave readings that made no sense. Jake kept his hands steady on the controls while Lyra navigated. Only she could sense the safe paths through this chaos. Only her connection to energy itself allowed her to see what was real and what was illusion. It took 3 days to reach the coordinates Lyra remembered. 3 days of flying through impossible space where up and down had no meaning and distance worked in ways that hurt to think about. But finally they found it. The sanctuary existed in the heart of a massive nebula. Structures made of crystal and light floated in the colorful gas clouds. They were beautiful beyond words, constantly shifting and changing like frozen music given form. "Jake," Lyra whispered, "they are here, my people. I can feel them." As the Wanderer approached, other Calith reached out to Lyra. Jake could not hear them, but he saw her holographic form flicker with emotion. Joy, relief, belonging. They were welcomed. The Calith elders manifested forms to communicate with Jake. They looked like beings made of pure starlight, constantly shifting between shapes. They thanked him for saving Lyra. They offered him food, rest, whatever he needed, but Jake felt out of place. These beings were ancient, wise, powerful. He was just a human, just flesh and blood in a place made for consciousness itself. He watched Lyra interact with her people. She was happy here, complete in a way she had never been on the Wanderer. And Jake knew what that meant. She would stay. This was where she belonged. Not on a small ship with a broken human who could barely take care of himself. That night, Jake sat alone in the Wanderer. He told himself he was happy for her. She deserved this. She deserved to be with her own kind, but inside he felt hollow. He had known this would happen. He had prepared himself, but preparation did not make it hurt less. Then alarms screamed through the sanctuary. Jake ran to the cockpit and saw ships dropping out of hyperspace. Military ships, coalition ships, and at the center of the fleet was a massive research vessel with one name painted on its hull. Dr. Helene Cross stood on the bridge of her ship, looking at the sanctuary through her view screen. She was a tall woman with gray hair and cold eyes. Next to her, officers and scientists prepared weapons and capture equipment. "So the rumors were true," Cross said. "The Calith sanctuary exists, and my escaped specimen led us right to it." How thoughtful. A communication came through to all ships in the area, including the Wanderer. "This is Dr. Helene Cross of the Coalition Science Division. The beings in this sanctuary are subjects of ongoing research. They are to be captured and returned to custody immediately. Any resistance will be met with lethal force." Jake felt rage burning in his chest. Research, custody. These were just clean words for slavery and torture. He activated his communication system. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Wanderer. These beings are not subjects. They are people. Free people. And if you try to take them, you will have to go through me." Cross laughed. It was not a kind sound. "One small cargo ship against my fleet? You are brave, Captain, or stupid. Stand down or be destroyed." Jake was not alone. Other ships appeared from hiding places throughout the nebula. Ships piloted by people Jake and Lyra had helped over the past months. Freed slaves, refugees, outcasts. They had followed the Wanderer, wanting to help, wanting to stand for something, and the Calith themselves prepared to fight. They could not create physical weapons, but they could control technology. Every automated system in the sanctuary came alive, ready to defend their home. Lyra's voice filled the Wanderer. "Jake, you do not have to do this. This is not your fight. Yes, it is, Jake said. You are my friend. These are your people. That makes it my fight. The battle began. Cross's fleet opened fire on the sanctuary. But the nebula itself seemed to fight back. Kaleth redirected energy through the gas clouds, creating shields and disrupting sensors. The Allied ships struck from unexpected angles, using the chaos of the environment to their advantage. Jake flew the Wanderer like never before. With Lyra guiding him, they moved through space in ways that should have been impossible. They destroyed 2 enemy ships in the first minutes, but Cross's fleet was large and well-armed. For every ship they destroyed, 2 more took its place. Hours passed. The battle raged on. Jake's allies were being picked off one by one. The sanctuary's defenses were failing, and Cross's research vessel was getting closer, launching capture pods designed to trap Kaleth. Lyra came to Jake with a terrible choice. She could unleash her full power, spreading herself across every system in the enemy fleet simultaneously. She could shut them all down, end the battle, but it would break her apart. She would exist in fragments, scattered across hundreds of systems. She might never be whole again. Do it, Jake said immediately. Jake, I will lose myself. I will forget you. Forget everything, then I will remind you. I will find every piece and bring you back. But right now your people need you. Do what you have to do. I will handle the rest. But Jake had another plan. One he had been working on in secret during their journey. He had studied the neural interface that connected them months ago. He had studied how Lyra's consciousness worked. And he had built something new. Before Lyra could sacrifice herself, Jake activated the device. It was an anchor, a piece of technology connected directly to the Wanderer's core and to his own neural patterns. When Lyra spread herself across the enemy fleet, this anchor would keep part of her centered, keep her connected to him. Keep her whole. What are you doing? Lyra asked as she felt the anchor activate. Saving you, Jake said. Now go. Show them what happens when they try to cage freedom. Lyra exploded outward. Her consciousness spread like a wave across space, entering every ship, every system, every computer in Cross's fleet. Jake felt her presence in his mind through the anchor, felt her splitting into 1,000 pieces while still remaining connected to him. The enemy fleet died. Weapons shut down. Engines failed. Life support flickered. In seconds, Cross's entire armada was crippled, floating helpless in space. But the cost was terrible. Jake could feel Lyra screaming in his mind. The pain of existing in so many places at once was tearing her apart. The anchor was holding, but barely. Jake gripped the controls so hard his knuckles turned white. Come back, he whispered. Follow my voice. Follow the connection. Come home. Slowly, piece by piece, Lyra began to pull herself back together. She followed the anchor like a light in darkness. She followed Jake's thoughts, his voice, his presence, and gradually she reformed in the Wanderer's core. When it was over, Lyra's holographic form appeared next to Jake. She looked exhausted, flickering weakly. But she was alive. She was whole. You saved me, she said. Again. Jake smiled, though tears ran down his face. That is what partners do. Cross's research vessel was boarded by Jake's allies. They found evidence of everything. Illegal experiments, Kaleth torture, slavery operations spanning decades. Dr. Helene Cross was arrested and handed over to a neutral tribunal. The coalition tried to cover it up, but the evidence spread too fast. News agencies across the galaxy picked up the story. Public outrage forced the coalition to acknowledge their crimes and promise reform. Jake did not trust their promises. But at least the world knew the truth now. As he sat in the Wanderer, recovering from the battle, Lyra appeared beside him. Her holographic form was stronger now, more detailed than ever before. The experience had changed her. She had touched the minds of thousands during the battle. She understood connection in a way she never had before. When I was scattered, Lyra said quietly, when I was lost in all those systems, there was only one thing that kept me together. You, your thoughts, your feelings. I felt what you feel for me, Jake. And I need you to know something. Jake looked at her, waiting. I feel the same way. I love you. I know that seems impossible. I know we are different. But what I feel is real. You are real to me. Jake reached out and put his hand where hers was. And for the first time he felt something. A faint warmth, a gentle pressure. Lyra had learned to solidify her energy enough to create sensation. It was not touch, not really, but it was close enough. I love you too, Jake said. I have for a while now. I just did not know if I should say it. They sat together in the cockpit, hand in holographic hand, watching the stars. And for the first time in years, Jake felt complete. The days after the battle were strange. The sanctuary was damaged but intact. Jake helped with repairs while the Caliph worked to restore their home. His allies, the freed slaves and refugees who had fought beside him, stayed to help as well. A community was forming here at the edge of impossible space. A community of outcasts and survivors. Jake worked alongside them, but his mind was elsewhere. Lyra spent most of her time with the other Caliph, learning from the elders, reconnecting with her heritage. She deserved that. She had spent so long alone, trapped, enslaved. Now she could finally be with her people. But Jake noticed she always came back to the Wanderer at night. Her holographic form would appear in the cockpit and they would talk for hours. About everything and nothing. About the future. About what came next. One evening, an elder Caliph approached Jake. The being manifested as a form made of silver light, ancient and wise. "You have questions, human," the elder said. "Ask them." Jake hesitated, then spoke. "Lyra belongs here, with all of you. But she keeps coming back to my ship. I do not understand why." The elder seemed to smile, though it had no face. "Because home is not a place, human. It is a feeling. A connection. Lyra has found her home, but it is not here with us. It is with you, but she is energy and I am flesh. How can that work?" "Love does not require bodies," the elder said. "It requires only truth. And the truth between you and Lyra is clear to everyone except you. She does not stay with you because she has to. She stays because she wants to." That night the elders called a gathering. All the Caliph assembled in the heart of the sanctuary. Jake was invited to attend. He stood among beings of pure consciousness, the only physical body in a sea of light. The elders spoke to Lyra. They offered her a gift. They could help her create a more restable form, one that existed both within the Wanderer and outside it. She would be able to project herself farther, interact with the physical world more completely. She would have greater freedom than any Caliph had known in generations. But there was a condition. She would have to choose. Stay in the sanctuary and receive this gift, living among her people, or leave and remain as she was. Jake felt his heart sink. He knew what she would choose. She should choose to stay. This was everything she had wanted. To be with her people. To be free. Lyra's holographic form appeared in the center of the gathering. She looked at the elders, at her people, at the home they offered her. Then she turned and looked at Jake. "I am grateful," she said, "for everything. For welcoming me. For teaching me. For showing me what it means to be Caliph. But I cannot stay." Whispers of energy rippled through the gathering. Jake stared at her, shocked. Lyra continued. "I was alone for so long, trapped, dying. And one person saved me, not because he had to. Not because it benefited him. But because it was right. Jake Morrison showed me what it means to choose kindness even when it is hard. Has showed me that freedom is not about where you are. It is about who you are with." She moved toward Jake, her form glowing brighter. "My home is with him. On that small ship, traveling through the galaxy, helping people who need it. That is where I belong. That is where I choose to be." The elders were silent for a long moment. Then the one who had spoken to Jake earlier manifested again. "Then we will give you the gift anyway. You have earned it, Lyra. You showed our people that hope still exists, that freedom can be found even in the darkest places. Take our blessing. Go with this, human. Make the galaxy better." The Caliph surrounded Lyra with light. Jake watched as they worked their power into her consciousness, restructuring her, strengthening her. When they finished, Lyra's holographic form looked even more solid, more real. Jake approached her slowly. "Are you sure?" he asked. "This is your chance to have everything. Your people, your culture. Everything you lost." "I did not lose everything," Lyra said. "I found you, and that is enough." They left the sanctuary 3 days later. The Wanderer flew back through the forbidden reaches with Lyra guiding them. But this time Jake was not alone. This time, he had someone who chose to be with him. As they emerged into normal space, a message came through from the Coalition. They offered Jake an official pardon. They offered him a commission as a special operative, hunting down slavers and criminals. They even offered him money. A lot of money. Jake deleted the message without responding. "You are not interested?" Lyra asked. "I do not work for governments," Jake said. "Especially not ones that abandoned my family. especially not ones that enslaved yours. We will keep doing what we are doing. Our way, Lyra smiled. She had gotten better at creating facial expressions with her holographic form. I like our way. They picked up a distress signal 3 days later. A small transport ship under attack by pirates. Jake could have ignored it, could have kept flying, but that was not who he was anymore. And Lyra did not want to be someone who ignored people in need either. They engaged the pirates. With Lyra's new abilities, the fight was almost unfair. She controlled the pirate ships' systems, shutting down weapons and shields while Jack disabled their engines. The transport escaped safely. The pirates were left floating in space, waiting for the authorities to pick them up. The transport captain sent them a thank you message and offered payment. Jake refused. Just pay it forward, he said. Help someone else when you get the chance. Word spread quickly. The human captain and his Calith partner. The ship that appeared when people needed help. Some called them heroes. Others called them criminals. Jake did not care about either label. He just cared about doing what was right. Months passed. They freed more slaves. They stopped more pirates. They helped refugees find safe places to live. The Wanderer became known throughout the frontier, a symbol of hope for some, a threat for others. One night, as they drifted through deep space between jobs, Jake and Lyra sat together in the cockpit. She had manifested her holographic form and sat in the co-pilot seat. They did not speak. They just watched the stars. Jake reached over and took her holographic hand. This time he definitely felt it. Solid warmth. Real contact. Lyra had been practicing, learning to stabilize her energy in ways that allowed them to touch. Do you ever regret it? Jake asked. Leaving the sanctuary? Leaving your people? Never, Lyra said. Do you regret saving me that day? Taking the risk? Best decision I ever made. Lyra squeezed his hand gently. You know, when you first bought me, I was so afraid I thought I was going to die. I thought no one would care enough to help. But you did, you cared. You finished what you started, Jake smiled. You said it yourself. You bought me. Now finish it. How could I refuse? And you did finish it. You saved me. And then something neither of us expected happened. Jake turned to look at her. What was that? Lyra met his eyes. Her holographic face showed genuine emotion now. Joy. Peace. Love. I fell in love with you. Jake pulled her closer. Their foreheads touched, energy meeting flesh in a connection that should not have been possible but was. And I fell in love with you. They sat like that for a long time, two impossible beings connected by something deeper than physics or biology. Connected by choice, by trust, by love. Eventually a new distress signal came through. Another ship in trouble, another chance to help. Jake looked at Lyra and she looked back at him. They did not need to speak. They both knew what came next. Jake powered up the engines while Lyra calculated the jump coordinates. The Wanderer turned toward the source of the signal. Toward danger. Toward people who needed them. Ready? Jake asked. Always, Lyra said. The ship jumped to hyperspace. Stars stretched into lines. Reality blurred. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, two souls traveled together toward their next adventure. A human and a Calith. Flesh and energy. Two beings who should never have met, should never have connected, should never have fallen in love. But they had. And that made all the difference. Because in the end, it was not about being the same species or the same form. It was not about following rules or meeting expectations. It was about choosing to care, choosing to help, choosing to love. Jake had bought a broken AI core at a black market auction, but what he found was so much more. He found a partner, a friend, a love that transcended everything the galaxy thought was possible, and Lyra had been saved by a human who refused to give up. Who saw her as Apperson when everyone else saw property, who finished what he started, not because he had to, but because it was right. They were proof that the universe was bigger than anyone understood. That connection was possible across any divide. That love could exist anywhere between anyone if people were brave enough to reach for it. The Wanderer flew on through the darkness, carrying its crew of two. Behind them, a trail of freed slaves stopped pirates and helped refugees mark their path. Ahead of them, endless possibilities waited. In the cockpit, Jake and Lyra held hands and watched the stars blur past. They did not know where their next job would take them. They did not know what dangers they would face. But they knew one thing for certain. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The end.